Welcome to The Explainer. Man, if you've been following the news today, you already know it is an absolute whirlwind out there. We are seeing a major, rapidly unfolding crisis in the Middle East with developments happening literally by the minute. It's a lot, right? It can be incredibly overwhelming to sift through a chaotic live blog and try to piece together what's actually going on. So, that is exactly what we're going to do together right now. We're distilling today's massive influx of live updates into a clear, structured breakdown so you can understand exactly what's happening on the ground, in the halls of power, and in the global markets.
Okay, let's dive into this. To make sense of the chaos, here is our roadmap for today. First, the Hormuz blockade pivot. Second, the tit-for-tat military strikes. Third, regional diplomacy. And finally, the global economic ripple.
Section 1. The Hormuz blockade pivot in shifting U.S. policy in the Strait. We're starting right at the political epicenter of today's events.
Just a day earlier, U.S. President Donald Trump had proposed charging a 20% reimbursement fee for ships to safely pass through the Strait of Hormuz, and this brilliantly illustrates how quickly things change. The strategy completely pivoted. The U.S. dropped the threat of tolls altogether, securing massive Gulf state investments instead, and coupled that with a full U.S. naval blockade targeting Iranian cargo. To understand the exact framing of this policy, we can look directly at the statements coming from the U.S. president. Writing on Truth Social, President Trump stated, "The Strait of Hormuz is open to all ship traffic except for Iran, and that is because of their lying, violent, malicious leadership, which is taking them down the path of total destruction." He further clarified that there will be a full blockade, but strictly enforced only on ships coming to and from Iranian ports or carrying Iranian cargo. So what's the economic rationale for dropping that 20% toll? Well, President Trump explained that highly productive conversations with Middle East leadership led to this new arrangement. His stated reasoning is clear. Those investments will be massive, which will see factories, plants, and equipment pour into the United States, which will create additional millions of high-paying American jobs. Essentially, the stated strategy is that capital flowing directly into the American industrial sector from Gulf nations is going to replace the revenue that would have been generated by those shipping fees. Section 2. Tit-for-tat military strikes. The kinetic reality. We're moving from policy directly to the physical reality on the ground.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because the sheer speed of this overnight escalation is staggering. At 12:40 a.m. local time, a Norwegian tanker, the Stolt Magnesium, was hit by an explosion from an unidentified device off the coast of Oman. Just hours later, by 08:30 GMT, multiple explosions were being reported deep inside Iranian cities. The speed of these exchanges is just incredible.
Let's neutrally break down the specific locations hit during the U.S. military's 5-hour operation, which the U.S. stated was meant to degrade Iran's ability to attack commercial shipping. Targets included Bushehr, which is highly notable because it's home to Iran's only operating civilian nuclear power plant. Explosions were also reported in the port city of Bandar Abbas, the location of an Iranian naval base. Furthermore, the Fars news agency reported 3 casualties resulting from overnight strikes in the Hormozgan province. Almost simultaneously, Iran launched immediate retaliatory strikes. What really stands out here is how the conflict is instantly spreading to U.S. allies and commercial assets. Iran targeted Bahrain, which houses the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. They targeted Jordan, which hosts U.S. Air Force assets. Both nations actually reported intercepting projectiles. And absolutely crucial to global trade, commercial tankers, including the Mombasa, Al-Bahia, and that Stolt Magnesium, were targeted with cruise missiles and explosive devices in and around the Strait of Hormuz. Adding to this highly volatile mix is Israel. Following these regional exchanges, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a stern, direct warning to Tehran regarding any potential attacks on his country. He stated, "The days are over when someone strikes us and we don't hit back with a decisive blow. It is a clear indicator of how widely this conflict could spread if red lines are crossed." Section 3. Regional diplomacy and flashpoints. The diplomatic fallout. Let's take a breath and pan outward to see how neighboring countries are reacting to all of this. Because while the physical war is dominating the headlines, there's an invisible war happening in the background. According to a fascinating report from the Financial Times, Middle Eastern mobile networks have been repeatedly hit with cyber attacks. Why? Officials believe Tehran or its allies have taken advantage of local phone roaming agreements to monitor and track the locations of U.S. personnel and contractors. It shows how modern warfare seamlessly integrates kinetic strikes with digital espionage. We also have to look at the human cost and the international diplomatic fallout. The Indian Foreign Ministry formally summoned the Deputy Chief of Mission of the Iranian Embassy in New Delhi.
They registered a very strong protest because, tragically, an Indian seafarer lost his life during the attacks on those two commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. 30 of the 46 crew members on those specific ships were Indian nationals. It's a stark reminder of how a regional conflict instantly impacts innocent workers from across the globe.
And the diplomatic chessboard is constantly shifting. Pakistan, acting as a key mediator between the U.S. and Iran, strongly condemned the recent bombing of the Sana'a airport in Yemen by Saudi-backed forces, stressing the need for regional stability. Meanwhile, entirely separate but ongoing diplomatic talks are happening in Rome, where Lebanese and Israeli delegations are negotiating the implementation of pilot zones in southern Lebanon. The entire region is incredibly active on multiple fronts.
Section 4. The global economic ripple. The cost to the consumer. We really need to bring this distant geopolitical conflict directly home because here is why this matters to your everyday life.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this number, $87.08, is the sudden 4-week high for a barrel of Brent crude oil. When missiles fly near the world's most critical energy choke point, the global markets react instantly, and this number is the direct result.
To put that into perspective, oil prices jumped 4.55% in an incredibly short amount of time. Remember, the U.S. and Iran had just signed a memorandum of understanding back on June 17th to engage in peace negotiations. With those negotiations clearly collapsing, the reimposed U.S. naval blockade, and continuous strikes on commercial tankers, global oil inventories are suddenly under severe threat. The market is in shock, and economists are warning that the clock is ticking on global inventory depletion.
So, the crucial point we're left with is this. With blockades tightening, commercial ships burning, and oil prices rapidly climbing, how long can the global economy sustain this standoff? It's a complex, multi-layered crisis with real-world stakes that will eventually be felt at every gas pump and shipping port in the world. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep an eye on the region, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.